And in order to do that, I'll just pick up a few words that you have already heard, and it's like this. And then Jesus turns to Simon and says, very simple, very easy to remember, Simon, do you see this woman? Simon, do you see this woman? Now you might wonder, what is so special about this? Well, that's precisely what we are trying to understand. Let me start very brutally, bluntly, up front, and say that the problem really with a vast majority of men is that they cannot see a woman. And this particular problem, which existed from the beginning of times, has acquired further intensity over a period of time and got culturally sharpened, so that by the time the question comes down to us, having traveled some 2,000 years, it really begins to explode within the cauldron of culture. Now, all of us are aware, for example, of the most alarming rise of crime against women, what's called sex-related crimes. In the city of Delhi, in the last 5 years, sex-related crimes have registered a 3-fold increase. And this is just not confined to metropolitan cities, it is all over the place. And particularly, sexual atrocities on girl children are being reported from the most civilized of cities. And oftentimes we sit and wonder why these things are happening. Now, if you look at the National Crime Bureau records, to take just one example, in the city of Bangalore, 50% of the women killed are killed in their bedrooms. One might even say that a woman is safer on the streets than in the bedroom. I can give you all kinds of statistics. It's not necessary because we all read newspapers. We are living in the same world. But the problem is that we have got so attuned to these things. There is a film of familiarity covering these things, preventing us from understanding and responding to the gravity of these atrocities. We simply take it for granted. And it's precisely this that as an academic community we need to shake off. We need to get up, wake up from our sleep, respond to realities, and have the courage also to tell our own stories of pain, of hurt. Now, the heart of the problem is that today, when a man looks at a woman, he does not see a woman. He sees an object. Now, there's all kinds of cultural dimensions to it. For example, the advertising industry plays a major role in, to use a Marxian term, thinging women, turning women into things, objects of display. And by and large, the problem with the materialistic consumerist culture is that it renders us blind to the mystery of things. When we look at nature, for example, nature is only a quarry. It's a passive object to which we are free to do whatever we want. But that was not our culture. There was a beautiful relationship between man and nature, human beings and nature. And relationships are by definition reciprocal. Nature responds to us. Nature used to respond to us. And when that relationship got disturbed, it became unilateral, and every form of unilateral action is violent, unjust, destructive. The very driving principle of consumerism is unilateralism. Consuming is a unilateral activity. There's no reciprocity in consumerism. And when that becomes the worldview, it begins to shape attitudes that comprise the web of social relationships. As a result, we become incapable of responding to the other as it really is. This, for example, affects parent-child relationship. In many cases that I know, parents are seen by children, particularly teenage children, as ATMs. Go press the button, you get the money, and that's all. Institutions are seen precisely in the same light. An institution is a place you go to in order to get a degree. After that, it's full stop. Workplace is not any better. Even our relationship with God is equally embarrassing. God is the cosmic ATM. No matter what you look at and wherever we turn, the pattern is the same, which is pure, naked, aggressive unilateralism. How does it happen? It happens necessarily by force, and there is no alternative. It happens perforce when we begin to turn the other into objects. And we are not aware of these things, because the problem in growing up within a culture is that we get conditioned within that culture, and therefore we are not able to recognize and react to the inhumanities, the depravities, the degradation that is written into that culture. Now, there was a time, for example, when a man looked at a woman very differently. Let me give you an example. One of my favorite authors among novelists is the Polish novelist who, of course, adopted English as his language, Joseph Korzeniowski Konrad. Konrad describes a woman in this manner, a man's response to a woman, and that's why it's so relevant. He says a woman is like a temple in which some mysterious rites are in progress. And the man is a bystander, standing far at the gate, only wondering what's going on. It's an attitude of wonder, it's an attitude of mystery, it's an attitude of worship. After all, you look at the entire literary traditions. It's one continuous celebration of the female principle. Now let's come back to this episode and look at this man. It's actually the problem of the man. The man sees in her a sinner. In fact, traditionally, this has been the problem. Society's attitude to women has always been negative. The woman is seen as a seductress, the woman a tempter, or in some contexts seen as only physically attractive but not endowed with intellectual talents. In fact, it was assumed that the more beautiful a woman was, the less intellectually capable she would be. Or we had the idea, for example, that, to use very non-felicitous sociological terms, what's called the kitchen garden view of the woman. In other words, a woman is there to give birth to children. So the purely instrumental view. We've had all kinds of things. But in the midst of it all, there was a very powerful tradition of celebrating the mystery, the glory, and the wonder of a woman. What has happened to that tradition? So therefore, when we participate in the process of education, there's one fundamental question that all of us have to face and not dodge. The question is this: how do I see? What do I see? Now, man-woman relationship, you would know that the college decided to go co-educational and became co-educational only in 1975. There was a time long ago when we were co-educational that was discontinued and the college became an all-male college, and then the lost tradition was retrieved in 1975. Now, we did so against tremendous opposition from male chauvinists, for the reason that we believed and still believe that promoting healthy man-woman relationship must be an integral part of the educational enterprise. And I'm proud to say that in this college that has been obtained. This is the insignia of life on campus, that women are respected, cherished. Though people who know nothing about the college may say whatever they want, no person, I dare say, within this community would ever look at a woman without respect. This is my absolute faith. Otherwise, we will not be St. Stephen's College. Now, let's look at this man. What is the problem with this man? The problem with this man is that he's not a man. Now, culturally, the definition of the male has always been a problem. We have our own notions about what constitutes manly activities. The macho image, as we say in some context. Who is a man after all? There's a muscular definition of man. There's a power definition of man. There's a patriarchal definition of man. There is a professional definition of man. There was a time, for example, when the man went out to hunt. The woman stayed at home and cooked and raised children. And even today, barring in certain societies, warfare is associated mainly with men. It's now changing. Technology will change that. So, every culture has its idea of what it takes to be a man. But what most cultures forget is the most human and humane concept, the truth, which is the ultimate truth. That to be a man, you must have the heart of a mother. A man without the heart of a mother is a fragment of a man. And all fragments will become demonic. Because sanity, compassion, love, a culture of caring, all these come from the fullness of our being. One of the reasons why values have wilted and withered away is that men or women, we are not growing towards completeness. The universal, unchangeable principle is this: if you stay a fragment, you're an aberration, and the expressions of aberration can never be whole or holistic. They will be cruel, and they will only caricature you as a human being. So the problem with this man was that, seen through his eyes, this was not a woman, she was only a sinner. Now, for example, you may have a neighbor. If your inner life is not proper, you will see in your neighbor only an enemy, or at least a nuisance. You never see your neighbor as the other expression of yourself. Whereas intrinsic to the Indian culture, the Indian spiritual worldview was that between you and me, there is really no discontinuity. It's modern culture that has infused this tension of the other as a threat, which is a form of negativity. All this issues from the question of who am I? So the problem really is not with the woman. The man is quick to find fault with the woman. The problem is really with himself. That is why Jesus says, Simon, do you see this woman? Can you see a woman? My dear friends, the problem is far greater than you think it is. If through education we can enable men to see women as women, there will be a moral, spiritual revolution in this country. But unfortunately, education, particularly higher education, bypasses all these responsibilities and limits itself to the soulless activity of simply warehousing information. So that an educated person is only seen as a repository of some knowledge and skills without any concern as to how he will use his knowledge and skills. The need to direct the usage of the knowledge and skills gained through education so that the expressions of these great intellectual assets become beneficial to a society has become totally alien to us. This is where I sincerely believe that higher education has dithered, and dithered badly. You study every report on higher education in this country. From 1948 up until 1964, which was the last Education Commission report, the Kothari Commission report. After that, we have had no report on higher education, unfortunately. Yeah, there is something called NP and the rest of it, but there was no Education Commission report. There's not a single report that I have read which does not emphasize the importance of value formation in education. But there's no institution that I can think of which really addresses the question of waking up the human being within a person through education. This is considered old-fashioned, outmoded. So I want to leave with you this question, my friends, because this is a question that haunted me for 30 years. It's not a small question. Do you see this woman? Do you? Let's rise for prayer.